But did you get that email from President Pines yesterday about the all the cases of coronavirus? That's not cute in College Park, Maryland, but it's partially why we're here. So
Yeah, definitely.
what happens?
Okay, we'll just wait a couple more minutes. Actually, I think we can start now. Yeah, why not? Welcome everyone to the student activism panel that we are holding in conjunction with College Park Scholars here at UMD and the Free the Vaccine campaign with UAM. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. So just a little bit about Free the Vaccine for people who don't know. We are a collective of volunteers, artists, health workers, students, and activists from around the world who are working on the COVID-19 pandemic during this time in quarantine. And we're trying to use innovation and advocacy to promote a safe and effective vaccine that is available to everyone and effective for all. So this is really at the heart of health equity and what our campaign is all about. And kind of coming from this, we wanted to bring in a student perspective of how we've been able, and other campaigns as well, have been able to bring sustainable change to their campus and meaningful change. So on that note, I want to briefly introduce our panelists for today. First, we have Mansa Gurram. Mansa is a sophomore student activist here at UMD. She's a strong supporter of health equity and has served underserved communities through various experiences, including a tutoring organization called En Camino and the UMB Cure Health Pipeline Program. On campus, she is on the e-board of UAM, which works to educate students on the access to medicines crisis. And she's also a project manager for the Free the Vaccine campaign. If you want to say hi real quick, Mansa, just so everyone
Hi
knows.
everyone. Yeah, so Tava basically just told you kind of a quick bio about me, but yeah, I'm excited for this panel and to see what Saba and Sapna also have to say.
Yeah, alrighty. So next we have Saba Tishbaka. I'm so sorry if I couldn't pronounce your last name. Let me know if I did say it right, but Saba is an amazing student leader involved in many groups and activities promoting diversity and inclusion on campus. She spent 3 years in various clubs, e-boards, tutored for 2 years through the Academic Achievement Program, and a year as a manager at the College Park Black-owned business Milk and Honey. She's also held internships with the U.S. Department of Treasury and Google Inc., and I think most commonly known for her work with Black Terps Matters on campus. So Saba, if you want to say anything else.
Hi everyone, and yeah, my last name is Shabaka. It's a hard one, I get it, but the T is silent just for future reference.
Gotcha. All right, Shabaka, thank you for letting me know. Okay, cool. Yeah. Last but not least, we also have Sapna Ramappa. Sapna is a third-year undergraduate student from UCLA who's majoring in human biology and society with a concentration in bioethics and public science policy. She's been involved with the Access to Medicines campaign through her involvement with UAM, where she's the internal vice president of the UCLA chapter and serves on UAM's North American Coordinating Committee, and also worked as a project manager for Free the Vaccine in the past. She's also a national co-chair for American Medical Student Association, AMSA's Just Medicines campaign. In addition to her work in the Access to Medicines movement, she advocates for client-centered care for people experiencing homelessness in Los Angeles with UCLA's Mobile Clinic Project, and hosts a podcast discussing the destigmatization of mental illness in the South Asian diaspora. So yeah, thank you, Sapna, for joining us. If you want to say something.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Alrighty, cool. Yeah. So I'm gonna stop sharing for a quick second. But we're just going to get into um, the bulk of the presentation. We're just going to do it more as a kind of question answer style. We would love to hear what all three of you have to say about the respective campaigns you've worked on in the past. And if anyone from the audience has any questions, feel free to pop it in the chat. And we can definitely address your questions at that time. We'll also have time at the end of the panel if you have any more questions you want to ask. But I guess I just wanted to start with all three of you. If you want to give us a brief overview on what campaign work you've been working on specifically on your campus, for how long, and what are the specific goals that you've been working towards for your specific passion project. So, Mansa, would you want to start?
Yeah, so as Taiba mentioned in the short little bio, I am a product manager for the Free the Vaccine campaign, which I got involved with it's been a couple months, but basically the campaign is all about making the COVID-19 vaccine and all the related health technologies accessible. And I know it may seem right now like, oh, it's free right now in the US, a lot of people are getting it. But when we look at it worldwide, there's a lot of low income countries that might not even get it for another 2 years. So that's kind of what we're working on. And then on campus, I'm working on the ETAF committee, which is a campaign basically trying to influence our university's licensing policy to make any drugs or health technologies that come from our campus more accessible. And a lot of students don't know how much our universities actually play a role in how accessible these drugs end up being and how they're priced. Our licensing policy actually plays a pretty big role in that. So that's kind of what I'm working on campus. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. Saba, would you want to talk about what campaign work you've been doing?
For sure. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Saba. So yeah, go to University of Maryland College Park. I'm a senior, I'm graduating this semester, and my major is philosophy, politics, and economics. And so the coalition that I started with two of my friends is called Black Terps Matter. It's on my shirt right now. And we started in June, so it hasn't even been a year yet, but we were able to push a number of goals for the anti-racist agenda at our school. So we officially started on June 25th. We had a list of 12 demands, and really we were just going to leave it at that protest, but all the people that came out really wanted us to continue and do more and organize the community. So we took it from protest into Zoom rooms and everything. So over the course of 8 months, we collaborated with different student leaders at the school, and we were able to go from a list of 12 in June to a list of 10 in July to a list of 25 in October. And then we're able to finally finalize that list of 25 demands with a number of other Black student organizations on campus. And so it's really cool to see something like that happen at the University of Maryland and be a part of it, because I personally have seen other student just activism movements. Like I was a part of Protect UMD, which is a coalition that started in 2016. They did a protest on November 17th. So in 2016, which happened to be my birthday actually. So it was super cool. And that's all I did for my birthday, my freshman year. And so it's cool to, fast forward 4 years and actually be a part of a group that's organizing for a lot of the same stuff. And it really just goes to show that, our work is continuous. So I guess to pull from a couple of the 25 demands that we were able to finalize with the administration, it's things from making sure to immediately get hate speech off of sidewalks and chalkboards and anywhere that it's etched into buildings immediately, from things like that to advocating for more spaces for Black individuals to meet on campus that they can feel more comfortable. So that they can feel more comfortable. We also, we do a lot of work to honor Black lives lost on the campus of the University of Maryland. So there's specific things in there, making sure that the school highlights individuals lost, like Lieutenant Richard Collins III, who is a Black man that was tragically lost his life on the campus of the University of Maryland 3 years ago by a white supremacist who was actually a student at the school. So all of these issues are much closer than they usually seem, I guess. So as an anti-racist coalition, we just try and show people how these things show up in real life, like amongst us all the time. So it's 3 of us, me, Nadia Owusu, who's a current senior at Maryland, Black woman, political science major, and something else that I can't remember right now. We all have so many majors. And Alyssa Conway, who's also a political science major, or government and politics specifically, and also a Black woman senior at the University of Maryland. So I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, alrighty, cool. Thank you so much for that, Saba. I know you do a lot of work and it's been really impactful on the campus so far. So thank you for sharing. Sapna, would you want to tell us a little bit about what you do on your campus?
Yeah, so this was kind of in the bio, but I go to UCLA in Los Angeles, and I am the IVP, or Internal Vice President, of our UAEM chapter. And so UAEM is all about access to medicines on a global scale. And so what our major campaign at UCLA was all about this drug called Xtandi. And I can type it in the chat because there's quite a bit of press on it in the news. If you just Google it, there's a lot of negative press towards it, just because Xtandi is a prostate cancer medication that was found and researched and developed at on UCLA's campus. And it is extremely, extremely out of price for so many individuals. So just in the United States, I believe it's around $130,000 for treatment. And then in Canada, it's significantly less. But then when you look all over the world, it is put and priced very, very out of reach for just the average person. And considering that, universities make a commitment to make global change and to do good with their research, it was a huge, shocking point for students at UCLA who, our university likes to pride itself on equity and global responsibility and all of this. But at the same time, our university, behind closed doors, they were suing the India High Court for trying to make generics of this drug, and just overall advocating for policies that would make this drug extremely, extremely inaccessible to the global public. And so with our campaign, the Xtandi campaign at UCLA, our biggest ask for the university was to reconsider their policies with Xtandi and other essential medications to really make sure that their licensing policies were more equitable, were more fair, and took into account the countries in which it was marketed. And so in India, for example, were there different ways to allow generic manufacturing of Xtandi and other essential medications, considering that India, for example, is one of the greatest greatest generic manufacturers in the world. So in terms of the student activism piece, something that our UAM chapter at UCLA pushed a lot for is just speaking to those high profile leaders of UCLA Health. And this was very, very challenging. And I'm sure maybe we'll go into depth on this later today, but getting the attention of these high profile people who are kind of making the decisions about the licensing policies at UCLA and trying to get them to sit down at a table with us and talk to us about why do they make the policies that they do, and how can we work together to make Xtandi and other similar drugs more accessible on a global level. It was really hard to even get there because as I'm sure a lot of you know, cold emailing is so hard. And then when you're trying to think of student activism on a larger level, you think of protests and more public facing campaigns. And so that's kind of why I mentioned, if you Google Xtandi, a lot of the press articles and things like that are negative. And that was actually something that really got us to the table in the first place, because universities in general love press, but specifically they love good press. And so when Xtandi was discovered at UCLA, like all of the news articles were like, look, yeah, UCLA found this prostate cancer drug and it's going to save lives and all of this. But once students were able to take Xtandi and put it in the news and say, you know, regardless of how effective this drug is, it's not accessible. That's when the conversation started to change. And that's when UCLA health officials realized, like, oh gosh, people are having negative press regarding Xtandi and regarding UCLA. And so it was along with different UC Regents meetings, which are like the larger, more public facing meetings that administration has, where we really got to speak there and, you know, talk about stories about medicine inaccessibility. And all of those pieces were really the parts of the story that started to like push this further and started to get us in rooms with these officials. And so as a little bit in terms of a timeline, we've been working on the Xtandi campaign at UCLA, I think before like around 2018. And I entered UCLA in the fall of 2018. And I got involved with this campaign in early 2019. So about January of 2019. And now, since then, we've started conversations with the Technology Transfer Office, which is kind of the group at UCLA that makes these decisions about licensing and the accessibility of these drugs. And since then, we're working on crafting this a different like guidelines and a different set of rules that will make these drugs and medicines more accessible.
Alrighty, cool. Thank you, Sapna. And I think what you guys were all hitting on is that you guys are actively working on goals, you know, still trying to get them done. So just kind of on that similar note, like what are some successes that you have seen with your campaign work, or how do you measure the rate of your success? And, you know, do you meet a certain goal and do you just stop, or what are the small victories or big victories that you guys have seen, if we want to start with Mansa or whoever?
Yeah, so like a lot of what Sapna was saying, we also resonated with here at UMD. It's just very difficult to get administration attention. And then even when we do get their attention, they're usually very dismissive, not very responsive. You know, stuff along the lines of like, oh, you're just students, you don't really know what you're talking about. So that can be very difficult to deal with. But I think so far, as a chapter, you know, we haven't been a chapter for very long. This is our second semester. But I'm personally very proud of what we've been able to accomplish so far, because I think just we've been able to educate so many more people on our campus about the access to medicines issue. And I think that's a very important first step, is just people realizing like, hey, there's a problem. You know, here's what we need to do to kind of address the problem. Here's like what the steps we need to take. So I think just starting there is really important. I think we've managed to do that at UMD in terms of UAM. And then in terms of Free the Vaccine, we've also had some pretty great successes. You know, we had I'm sure like some of you probably know, we had the Funk Rally in DC, and I think it's going to go into an HBO documentary. It was in the Washington Post, just kind of like getting our message and our campaign out there, having more people know what we're trying to do, and just having those allies backing us, I think is very important. And we've been able to do that with not only the Funk Rally, but a lot of the other events that we've been having through Free the Vaccine. And just having this coalition in itself, a coalition of a couple hundred students, and even like the age range, I think it's from like 18 years old. We have people from 18 years old to like, I don't know, like 50, 60 years old, and from countries all around the world. I think having that unity and having that backing with everyone trying to make these medicines more accessible in a pandemic, make the vaccine more accessible, I think that in itself is a really big success. And I think it's great that, you know, we just started season 3. So it's been almost a year since Free the Vaccine started. And I'm really excited to, you know, see what else we can do.
Alrighty. Thank you, Mansa. Savo, would you want to speak?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I was at the Funk Rally and it was amazing. So I'm so glad to hear about all of those successes from it too. and everything that's, going to be happening with the chapter. I'm super excited to see that. Well, with Black Terps Matter, since it's a coalition made up of 3 people, and we actually don't have like 20 or 30 people working behind the scenes. Like a lot of people think that we have like all these people working behind the scenes, and it's like 5 people for real. And I think it's like that for a lot of organizations. So we have to kind of measure our impact kind of differently because of that. Personally, I like to measure our impact in direct actions. Some people say, that's not, shouldn't do that because, we can't always have direct actions. But when, one thing that I've definitely learned from my research in, civil rights activism is that, direct action is extremely important. So, we've had a couple events, and so I'd love to, just call those out as impactful moments. So we had our first protest on June 25th, and we had our teach-in on July 23rd, and that was really important because in our teach-in, we were able to educate the community about all of the different organizations that were currently doing things. So it wasn't like, okay, so just stay tapped into Black Terps Matter and you'll find out everything. It was like, okay, learn about the Black Alliance Network, hear about the notes from their town hall, learn about the Black Grad Student Union and sign off on their petition because they have different needs than us, because most of the graduate students, they're actually like employees of the university. They're getting paid, severely underpaid, might I add. So that's the kind of thing that we talked about at our teach-in on July 23rd. We also held a sit-in at the U.S. Department of Treasury. We did that along with 3 other organizations that are based out of the DMV. One is the Live Movement, which is founded by my good friend Anaya Vines, who is a junior at Howard University right now. She's also the NAACP president for Howard University right now. So she's really great. Y'all could probably Google her, Anaya Vines. And so she put together Tent City 2020. And so it was sit-in for 8 days, and we centered Black education. So we had a number of panels, workshops. We even had a go-go truck come by from this organization, Long Live Go-Go, and play for us. Actually, it was actually the same time as the funk rally, and so it just intersected very, very nicely. And that was October 19th through 26th. That's when we had the sit-in at the Department of Education. And then our last direct action of 2020 was November 17th. That's kind of what this shirt is commemorating, the Protect UMD time capsule that we did. And I'm really happy to say that UAEMS from our school, our chapter, was in attendance at the time capsule. So, that was really a time. The question was, what would you want to let the future Terps know, basically? And we had more than 15 different people from different organizations come and capture a moment in time in November of 2020 during a pandemic. And that's, for history. It's also on YouTube. I can share the link so y'all can watch it whenever. But, I think those events were extremely impactful, and they're events that we organized. And so it took collaboration and resourcefulness because we have no funding, and we're a grassroots organization. So it's kind of like that's what built us. And we all were there as, most of them, all of the co-founders were there. And so, it's kind of also about your legacy and what you want to leave behind and what you want to carry forward. And, with everything being online, because it's the coronavirus pandemic, it makes it really hard to organize. I will not lie, but we have to organize. I can't remember exactly which civil rights leader said it, but he said, organize, organize, organize. And that's exactly how I feel. So the only reason we're able to get those direct actions to happen is because we're in constant communication with each other. So at the same time that we are organizing these events, we're also dealing with the smaller issues that come up in our community and in real time. So we're constantly advocating for other causes. We're constantly going to other organizations' events and just, showing up and advocating, making sure to record and live stream so everyone that supports us can make sure to feel like they're a part of this event as well and get the education. So those are the things that we kind of do to continue our work. Yeah,
Well, thank you. Stephanie, would you want to speak?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to echo what Saba and Manasa were saying. I think so much of student activism is just pushing and pushing and trying to get people to show up to events and trying to get people to care about what you have to say. And I think it is challenging and it is hard to get that exposure. And so I think one of the things that I'm very proud of our UCLA UAM chapter for doing and for for accomplishing is just really getting that exposure and getting people excited. So we started the extent, or at least I started working on the Extandi campaign at UCLA around January of 2019. And after we did those more public facing protests and we invited our friends and we got people to show up, other folks on our campus started getting really excited about the Access to Medicines movement. And so that's when we started the chapter at UCLA. We started it around the fall of 2019, so about a year and a half ago. And I think that's something I'm extremely proud of, because getting people excited about the causes that you're fighting for is half the battle. And since then, another thing that I've been really proud of is just, once again, getting to those meetings with high level officials, because though exposure is awesome and it's something that fuels the campaigns and the movements that you're fighting for, getting to those tables and having the conversations with the people who have the power to change things is so challenging, but so important. And getting allies at those levels, it's really the next step and a huge step in getting what you want accomplished. And so after we did those UC Regents meetings and we told our stories and we spoke about why, as students, it was important for us to see that our university was taking things seriously and our university was, fighting for change and wanting to be good people and the good guys. That's when, once again, the conversations started. And that's something I'm very proud of, because telling your story is a hard thing. And we had one med student on our team, Netta, who spoke about her personal experience and family's experience with inaccessibility to medication. And people care about individual stories. It matters so much when you go up there and you speak with authenticity and vulnerability and people listen. So I think that was a huge lesson that I learned from all of this. But really just getting to those meetings and having people who were sitting on the boards of UCLA Health agreeing with us was huge. For example, we had, his name's Dr. John Mazziota. He's the CEO of UCLA Health. He sat down and he was like, this makes sense to me. Like, and he was also helping us kind of push internally with the UCLA Technology Transfer Office. And that was huge, because students have a voice and students have power, but getting those allies who can also help fight internally is so helpful. So I think that's something I'm very proud of.
Hey, thank you. And I think something that I wanted you guys to touch on beforehand, before moving into this question, was, successes, because sometimes as students, it is hard to get to that table with people in power. And sometimes we need alternate methods of measuring success, because, success can come in a various different ways, basically. But on that note, what are some of the obstacles that you guys have faced and through your campaigns, and what have you done to try to overcome them? And even if you weren't able to overcome them, what was your experience with them? So, Monza, if you would want to start.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, one of the biggest obstacles is just getting the attention of those people in power, the people that can actually make those decisions that will result in the change you want to see. And then once you get their attention, it's the whole story of them, actually listening to you. And I think we're still trying to figure out, how to overcome those challenges. But something that I learned from the Free the Vaccine campaign that's been really useful is the whole concept of artistic activism. So, kind of going beyond just like emailing and using artistic ways to get their attention. I'm trying to think of some examples, but there's just so many things that the different squads from Free the Vaccine has done. They've made art messages. There's like a whole page where you can see all the things that they've been able to create. But when you kind of use art and use more unique ways to get people's attention, it can surprise you and it can actually be very effective in them actually listening to you. So I think that's one of the things that I've learned in how to overcome that challenge. And then I think, like Sapna was saying, the other big challenge is just getting people to care. And a lot of people do care. Like when we have these causes, no one is cold-hearted enough to say, oh, I don't care at all. A lot of people do care. They have some sort of interest, but then getting people to care to the extent where they're actually coming out, where they're actually supporting you, where they're taking action beyond just, the concept of caring, that's another big challenge. And again, it's just continuing to push, continuing to do what you can as student activists, getting your friends out there, just doing all that you can to gather up that support is kind of, how you overcome that challenge, I think.
Alrighty, thank you. Yeah, and a point on that is continued persistence is a really good trait to have. So yeah, thank you so much. Saba, would you want to speak?
Yeah, so we face a lot of challenges. Black Trips Matter. I will not lie. I wish I could say we felt that satisfaction of being able to come to the table with the president of the University of Maryland, but none of the organizers from Black Trips Matter have ever had a meeting with the president of the University of Maryland, Daryl Pines. But we have been able to meet with other administrators at the school, the VP of Diversity and Inclusion, Georgina Dodge, and the VP of Student Affairs, Patty Perillo. And she hosts most of the meetings that we work through to be able to get the progress that we did have with the list of 25. However, I do want to let everyone know that, resistance is going to come in so many different forms, like so many different forms. Resistance might come literally from the people that you love, like your family members. They could really, truly not understand what you're doing, and they could give you a lot of pushback. Resistance can come in the form of, a really tough semester in school. Like I remember when I was doing the thick of my activism work, I was taking 6 classes in college and I'm doing my thesis. So it really truly was not convenient. But the work must continue. Another type of resistance that, can happen is, especially as a student activist, you can face resistance from the state. And there could be a lot of different forces telling you that you shouldn't be out protesting or you shouldn't be advocating, but at the end of the day, it's really up to you as individual students to let your moral compass guide you. You're the only person that knows what you've been through, however long you've been here, 19, 20, 21, or 22 years, however old you are. You're the only person that knows the thoughts in your head, truly. So just remembering that is what helps me a lot, and getting through my challenges, whatever they may be. Reminding myself that, there's no one that has gone through these experiences. So there's no perfect way to go about it, resolving these challenges, because it quite simply, some of it has never been done. And most of it, hasn't been done with this administration, hasn't been done in this year. So don't be afraid to just put your best foot forward and try your hardest and give, as good quality to whatever it is that you do. That's a great way to get past the challenges.
Alrighty, thank you. Yeah, that's, again, persistence, especially for students. We often feel like we can't make that change, but slowly and surely, even in the face of these obstacles, it's really important. Yeah, what about you, Sapna?
Yeah, definitely want to echo on the point of persistence. I think that's huge, especially as student activists. Honestly, I think the biggest obstacle was being taken seriously, because as students, at least when I started this, I was like 19 years old. We had a bunch of like 18 and 20-year-olds on it, and we're trying to push a university technology transfer office with a bunch of high-profile doctors and lawyers to make drugs affordable. And obviously, the first question is like, well, what do students know? Like, what do you know about the economics behind medicine and research and development. And I think that was more so an internal challenge to kind of get over, is just, it was really just forcing ourselves to learn more about these topics that we initially didn't know much about. And really that kind of was a huge motivating factor in encouraging us to once again learn more and be able to hold our ground and say what we think, and know that what we thought about access to medicines and drug affordability was valid. Even though we might not have all the legal fancy terms to explain it, we still know what's going on and we still have opinions. And the more that our chapter and us as individuals, the more we're working towards the access to medicines movements, just reminding ourselves that there's always so much more to learn. So I think being taken seriously was more of like an internal boundary that we put on ourselves, but also definitely an external thing as well. Just to go over the timeline again of the campaign at UCLA, it started before I was a student at UCLA, and I'm graduating this year. So just to put it into perspectives, that these campaigns take time, and getting follow-up and getting responses to relatively basic things was super hard, because once again, a lot of these people, especially given COVID, getting the technology transfer office to respond to us was challenging. So really, once again, being persistent and really pushing and really internalizing that your stories and your voices matter allowed us to continue to push forward. And then to speak on the resistance piece that I thought was really interesting, just to point out a little anecdote. When we were starting the Extandi campaign, a lot of it is just like optics and getting people excited about the campaign. And so we had this little phrase go around: UCLA has a drug problem. And that's what we were pushing around at the beginning of 2019. And, you know, with all student activism, it starts with social media, I think. And so all of us changed our Facebook cover photos, and we were posting these graphics and putting it all over campus. It said UCLA has a drug problem. And I remember so clearly, my mom called me furious. She's like, why did you change your Facebook profile or your Facebook cover photo to this terrible thing about UCLA? Like, they're going to hate you. They're going to like, they're not going to like you as a student if you're speaking up against the school and its administration. But yeah, so once again, the piece that you can get resistance from your families and your friends of people saying like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to put yourself in this position? But just reminding yourself that what you're fighting for and what you're advocating for matters is, I think, the forefront of really pushing forward and staying persistent.
Yeah, those are really, really great points, all of you guys. And kind of on that, as students, what would you like your relationship to be like with your university administrators? Like, theoretically, like, what would be that perfect picture, or what you kind of expect from your university? And then what is it actually like? And then did it evolve over the course of your campaign? So Monta, if you want to go ahead and get started.
Yeah, I think it's definitely difficult because obviously, like, I am a proud student of UMD. Like, there's so many things I love about UMD, like go Terps, all of that. But it's just difficult when you see your administration doing things that you don't necessarily agree with. And then, when you see them not really trying to make a change, and they do all these performative things, and it's just it's like a love-hate relationship sort of thing, where you love your university, but then you see the administration not really trying to change, not really trying to progress or move forward. And that can be difficult. And I think as you go on with the campaign, like, the longer you do this kind of work, the more comes to light, the more you see about, things that you might not really approve of. And it just makes it even harder to respect your university and the administration when you see these kinds of things come to light. So it's definitely difficult. And you obviously don't want to be in a bad light with university administration, with people that are in power. It's scary because there is such a big power difference. So you don't want to make these people angry, but also sometimes that's the only way to get their attention. So it's definitely a line that you have to walk on. It's a difficult thing to balance, but also something necessary in student activism a lot of the time.
All right, cool. Thank you. Saba, would you want to go?
She just took the words out my mouth. Like, that's literally the best explanation that I could give, period. And that's not even at just, the University of Maryland. That's probably any school. That sentiments from so many past student activists that I've talked to, sometimes. So I actually have 11 cousins that graduated from the University of Maryland. So sometimes one or two of my cousins, a situation will come up, I'll tell the group chat about it, and they'll be like, oh, this is what's making me rip up my diploma. And it's like, it's always been a thing for us, because it's like, I've come to the conclusion that it's just cringy. The way that my school makes me feel, it's like when I want to say go Terps or something, it's just like, because it's like, just like she said, they don't actually treat the students well. And if you know that because you are a student at any given point and you're able to feel that in real time, like for example, at the University of Maryland, they gave us 2 masks and sent us on our way. Was that good enough for anybody? Does anybody feel loved? Does anybody feel like that set us up to be fearless Terps? I'm confused. But it's the combo of seeing the university not care about the people that they're supposed to care about, not only students, but their workers that they're supposed to pay, and graduate students, and the unions that are trying to do collective bargaining. It's the combination of seeing that and also struggling, because we're students, like we're literally students in real time. That could give people a really bleak outlook on school and the university, and say, once I graduate, I'm just never going to talk about them or to them again. But I think it takes a different person to, be an activist and want to be a part of the change that they want to see, and be okay with the fact that the work that you're putting in, you probably won't be able to reap the benefits from it. Just going to be honest. You probably are not going to be reaping the benefits of the seeds, but if you plant them, they could really grow and be so much bigger and greater and more beautiful than you could ever imagine. So I think it's just worth a shot. I think it's worth the chance. I don't regret a single second of any of the activism work that I've done, not only in the year 2020, which was absolutely the craziest, but the entire time that I've been in college, since I started my freshman year when I was the president of the Black Student Union Freshman Council. So I think that everyone should get extremely involved, as much as possible. At the end of the day, it was my leadership experiences from my freshman and sophomore year that got me to be able to have internships at these huge corporations like the Treasury and Google, which is UMD alum founded. So, I love to give back to my community, and I have have an ethic of service for myself, and that's what I know, and that's what I let carry me. So yeah.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, really important. Sapna, you got any points?
Yeah, definitely wanted to echo. I think a lot of what universities put out are often very, very performative, just inherently, because these huge institutions want to put their best foot forward when compared to other universities or other large institutions. And so what I think is that students have this really, really interesting role where, yes, we are like members of the university, and yes, we could have pride for our university too. But we have this very unique position where we're allowed to kind of ruffle the feathers a little bit. We're allowed to make noise. We're allowed to show up to protests. And that's what I love about being a student, that people care about what you have to say. It's easy to think otherwise, but you'd be surprised the power of your voice when you go to a professor and you say, I'm a student who cares and loves this university, but I still have complaints and I still have things that I think that we should improve. And so I think a big thing to remind yourself as a student is that you do have the power to ruffle those feathers and get people excited and get people angry and riled up as well. So kind of in the similar vein of universities being performative, UCLA is a huge research institution. And if you search anywhere, they will pride itself, UCLA prides itself on its innovation and research. And so when we were doing this whole like research and development thing with Extandi, so much of pushing it is you as a university really glorify and pride yourself on research, which is totally fine because UCLA is a huge research institution. But at the same time, when we're thinking about the global implications of this, like you need to step up and like put your money where your mouth is and all of that. So being a student, you're allowed to say those things. And another thing that I've realized, especially through the Free the Vaccine campaign, is that being an alum of the university is huge too. They always care about their alumni connections. So you can always use those to sway your university. But to answer your question about if that relationship has changed over time, absolutely. I think, and I've had a lot of conversations with Netta, who's been kind of the med student really spearheading the direct conversations with the UCLA Technology Transfer Office. But we started off this campaign really ruffling feathers, really being loud and noisy, and UCLA has a drug problem and all of that. But after we got into those meetings with the Technology Transfer Office, and after we started those one-on-one conversation, that was the opportunity to settle down a little bit and then not be as not be as combative in the way that we interacted in these conversations, but really hearing their perspectives and hearing them out, and being a lot more calm in our approach. And I think that's a huge message for students, is because we do like to be loud and noisy and ruffle feathers, but when we are in those meetings, to be respectful and to hear their perspective, and you can still fight back and you can still advocate for what you think, but just changing your attitude a little bit and your the way you hold yourself in meetings is huge, because then it goes back to your ethos. And if these universities take you seriously, unfortunately. But yeah, so I think our relationship with the Technology Transfer Office did change over time, but still from a place of students' voices matter. And so Netta, what she was able to do is now she actually like has a student role in the Technology Transfer Office, which is super cool. And just goes to show that they do care about students' perspective, and utilize that and leverage that to really influence your university to make the right decisions.
I want to add something too. Just back to your original question, because I don't think that I answered that enough. What I would want from the university in regards to communication. So we've only called for one thing from the beginning in regards to communication, which is town halls. We want town halls that the administration hosts, so the university community can ask the people that are making the decisions the questions. Simple, very simple, not private, conversations with just the Black community or Black student leaders, but genuinely the entire community. The university has been extremely reluctant to do that. And the only time that they did that was at the very beginning of the semester with the Diamondback. And the Diamondback moderated a panel with the president. But we'd like more opportunities to find out actually how, if this isn't like how the system is supposed to work, basically, because there's a lot of things that even the Student Government Association at UMD recommends to the administration that they don't necessarily do or take advantage of. So town halls been a big thing since we started.
Alrighty, yeah, thank you. And kind of on that point, we're rounding out to our last question for today. So, for the three of you, what advice would you give to students who want to work to affect change at their universities, regardless of whatever campaign they're working for, public health or, rent crisis or, anti-racism policies and initiatives? And along with that, what are some takeaways from student activism that people can apply to a broader scale and maybe, national, statewide campaigns as well? So, Monza, would you want to start us off?
Yeah, I think what I've learned to be really important is when you have a mission or a goal, like knowing who your allies are, figuring out like first who can help you, how to get to them, how to get their attention. So just like really knowing the ins and outs of what you want and then like how to get there. I think having that clear path just in your mind is really important. Obviously that path can change like as you're working along. If you realize that something's not going the way you want, or there are different people that might be able to help you better, that's definitely something that can change. But knowing that is really important, I think, in student activism. And then again, like what we were all saying before, just that persistence, because there will be a lot of resistance in any like path to change. You're always going to face someone who doesn't want that change. And I think knowing that no matter how many failures you have, to just keep on pushing, to keep on going, because eventually, like, you never know, one of those failures might turn out in your favor. You might get that meeting with the person you want, you might be able to get to that table. So just to keep on pushing. And I think student activism can definitely be relate to kind of a bigger level, because what we do as students is essentially what is happening at state and national campaigns. It's just that, if anything, it's harder for us because we're seen as less knowledgeable about these issues that we're pushing for. As Sapna was saying earlier, people just view us as not knowing as much about what we're talking about because we're 18, 19, 20 years old. We are very young, but I think they don't realize that us as students, we do have that perseverance, we do have that persistence, and a lot of us don't like to take no for an answer, which is really important. I think in student activism, that's honestly a lot of the times what gets us to those successes. And a lot of that is definitely can be relayed at state and national levels in these bigger campaigns. Just keeping that same spirit is really important.
Alrighty, thank you, Mansa. Saba?
Yes, thank you, Mansa. That was an amazing response. And I think my first tip is to be like student activists like Mansa and get involved and stay involved the entire time that you're in college. Because, like, I mean, get involved in college, period. I think that, I mean, I've never met someone that's been like, oh, I wasted my time in all of the clubs in college. Like, so just some food for thought. But I guess as far as tips, I'm just going to reiterate the plant seeds one. I promise you, planting seeds is just the key. It's really the key to success in college, in my opinion. Um, Take advantage of like all of the opportunities, both as a student activist and how it relates to like a bigger picture too, I guess. There are people that said that, you know, we as Black Terps Matter, we should only organize with other Black-led organizations at the beginning. And none of us thought that was a good idea because there's so many different people at the school and there's so many different organizations. But if we let that, you know, pigeonhole us, we literally probably wouldn't even have made it past our first 2 direct actions, because it takes the entire community. So never try and don't try and box yourself in thinking that it's going to be what leads you to the next biggest thing. Try and take advantage of a lot of different opportunities, and when it comes to the point that you have to decide, you know, pick, good luck and choose wisely, but definitely take advantage of your opportunities, and don't burn bridges. I don't burn bridges. It just doesn't make much sense. You never know when you're going to need that connection or whatever, and you don't know how it's going to affect you down the line. So treat everyone with kindness and how you'd like to be treated. And like UMD says, you know, they say stay fearless. So I guess that'll just be my parting bit. Stay fearless.
Yeah, thank you. Sapna, any parting thoughts?
Yeah, definitely wanted to echo everyone's saying, get involved, stay involved. Don't burn bridges, variety of allies, and know who they are and keep them in your back pocket, because they will be helpful at any and all times to really leverage your campaign, your movement, whatever you're fighting for. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is just to stay knowledgeable, because knowledge is power. If you can come into a room and know your stuff, you have so much power and you have a lot to say and your voice matters. So educate yourself on the things that you care about. And that sounds super straightforward, but you'd be surprised how valuable that is. So get educated, stay educated, and stay really passionate and well-informed on the topics that you're fighting for. And then with regards to the bigger picture with student advocacy and student activism, I think remembering that your connection to these different institutions are so worthwhile to foster and to kind of capitalize on. So for example, when you're going into legislator's office and you want to do like state advocacy, national advocacy, whatever, when you go into these rooms with legislators, legislative staffers or whatever, it's always so powerful to say that you're a constituent of their district or a constituent of their state or whatever. But just a reminder that your connection and your identity, whatever it is super, super important. So if you're a student, flaunt that. If you're an alumni, do that. If you're a constituent of a certain politician or legislator, use that to your advantage. Yeah, just don't underestimate how important your identity is.
Thank you so much, Sapna, Saba, and Mansa. At this time, if anyone has any questions they want to ask, you can either, turn on your camera and, say it, or you can pop it in the chat. So I will wait on that to see if anyone has any questions. But if not, which is totally fine, I think today was such it was a really, really great conversation, and I really appreciate everyone coming and listening to what Saba, Mansa, and Sapna had to say. I think it's really important as we want to make change on our campus and, making sure that, us as students, we do have the power and, don't let university administrators, take that away from you, which is a really, really important point. So kind of on that note, we have the Free the Vaccine exhibit that is going up online. It's active. And if you guys want to check out more about what Free the Vaccine does and the different projects that we've undertaken to target our various university targets and other things, just visit freethevaccine.org/exhibit and you'll see a lot of the work that we've done. Along with that, we're having a student action hour event next Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern. More information will be sent out soon, but it's basically going to be UAM here at UMD, Maryland PERG, Black Terps Matter, and our AMSA chapter, and we're basically gonna be going through and using the stuff that we learned at today's session to actually kind of, craft messages for the specific targets of our respective campaigns, because not only is it important to work on your own campaign, but also to support others and ensure that, us as a campus community are always there for each other. So if you want more information about that, that'll be coming out soon too. But other than that, thank you so much for attending today. We really appreciate it. If you want to follow us on social media, that would be really great. But yeah, thank you so much. If, Sapna, Mansa, Saba, whatever you guys want to drop in the chat, go for it. But other than that, everyone's feel free to leave. This is also being recorded, so we'll be posting it soon afterwards as well. But thank you so much, everyone. Yeah. Alrighty.
All right, thank you everyone else and all the panelists. This was really amazing.
Yeah,
and
it was
I've ever done anything like this, so I really appreciate y'all for organizing it.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was a really great conversation, so thank you, everyone. Alrighty.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. See you guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
Yeah, thank you for coming, Sapna.
Of course. Talk soon.
Yeah, talk soon. Alrighty, see you guys.
Bye.
Bye.